Hey folks, and welcome to part 6 of Fanning the Flames of War on California. California is under attack again. This is not any new news to anybody that's been following the past 2.5 years when the first attacks occurred, but actually they were going on before that, but more concentrated attacks in Northern California with the quote Tubbs Fire, Sonoma County, Napa County. Then we had Redding, Santa Barbara. Then we had Paradise, Malibu, Redding, and Lake County, Mendocino County, Lake County getting hit over and over. And Deborah Tavares at StopTheCrime.net called it out in 2011. Credit to her, hats off. We must come together and wake up and realize we are under attack. We're under attack to get everyone out of California. They're waging wars now on single-family homes. As Deborah just covered in her website, there's no more single-family home building permits being allowed. Because they created the homeless crisis, they're saying, oh, you must take care of everybody else now, so you can't have a single-family residence. This is all meant to drive the prices down, 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 and get people fleeing out of California. This is state of Orwell, folks. This is Orwellian laws that they're putting out that you don't think it's only in California. It's part of UN Agenda 2020 and 2030 and the climate action plans and the wild urban interface plans, which we'll get into here a little bit more in a little bit. But think about it. You're not allowed to buy a piece of property and build your dream home, your white picket fence, your single-family residence. It all must be multiple-use building that must be going on. It's going on everywhere in California now. This is a law. This has already been passed. And shill puppeteer Jesuit Gavin Newsom, governor, who you'll hear about more about his family connections, is passing all of these unbelievably meaningless laws while he's not allowing money to be appropriated to provide for the homeless. They want the people homeless so they can get them out of the houses, and this furthers the single-family use building permit elimination. Meanwhile, this is all part of the scheme we're seeing unfolded about Agenda 21, as we've been talking about, and we'll get into a little bit more here. But I chronicled back when the fires began in California, and Santa Rosa, October 7th, 2017, that the same footprints they plan to rezone. This is Fountain Grove, or now called Fountain Grave, next to Coffee Park or Coffin Park and Journey's End, which you'll hear about a little bit as well. The same exact footprint of the fires is the same exact footprint for the redevelopment plans that were already in place in June of 2017 before the fires began. Or should I say directed energy weapons, as you can see by these dots in the evacuation zones. They're not moving back. They're not coming back. They're not allowing the people to move back in and move in their homes when the houses were in escrow and people couldn't stand to live there anymore and they're going to sell them at fire sale prices. They found benzene in the soil. And then you got this puppeteer, guaranteed Freemason, former CAL FIRE Ken Pimlott, who can't even identify 157 of 170 fires that started that day. He's out there calling that we must mull home bans in fire-prone areas, where the entire state of California has been called a fire-prone area now by his own department. Do you understand what's going on, folks? Are you getting pissed and angry? You had better, because they're priming the pump to get everyone out of California. They're claiming California for their own. They being the elite, the ones in power that have been in power for a very long time. Look at these articles after articles telling people to get out, get out. Everybody's fleeing, and this puts the memes in people's heads to leave. And back in 2007, 2008, we had the home prices crash, and it was bought up by all the venture capitalists. You say the Chinese? No, it's the money guys. It's not the Rothschilds. It's the Jesuits, folks. Those are the ones behind the money. And they're telling us it's going to happen for decades more. Fear, fear, fear. They're turning off the power. They're getting everyone to flee California as they're claiming this is the new climate action plan because the climate's not out of control. And they've been doing this now with 5 years of a drought. Then we had the second greatest record rains. But they're saying, oh, we don't have enough water. So Jerry Brown, on his way out, governor, says, oh, we're going to put water restrictions. 2022, you can only use 55 gallons of water. Or you're going to get fined up to $1,000 a day. And they're taking away private water rights as well, folks. This is all part of the game to get us out of California and promote the biodiversity plan, stack and unpack them, move them into the mega cities, and get the people off the lands. I'm not even getting into Georgia Guidestones, but you can see it going on right now. It's in front of everybody. And who are they blaming? The people. He's signing a wildlife fire bill. Look at the smile on his face. It's putting the bill on the people in the Kincaid fires. Who's going to pay for it? The people who lost their homes and everything. They must pay because the state is broke, or they're saying. And here you see the fire zones, they're losing their homeowners insurance. This is how they do it. You can't get insured. You can't get back in. But Amazon's getting into the home insurance business. But a lot of people can't even qualify. We'll get into Amazon a little bit later here too. But you see, they're dropping coverage on everybody. So what happens if you have a mortgage and can't get coverage? You got to get out. Oh, speaking of get out, you won't be able to get out at night because there's going to be curfews. This is all coming down real time right now. And then they're telling the children there's not enough school hours to get them in school anymore, so they can't get the education, quote unquote, and it's impossible to live here. That's the whole game, is to make the prices so high, the homeless so burdened that they can't live here anymore. But look at the incest in California that's been going on for a century.
Pat Brown's father, Edmund Joseph Brown, was known for running scams and gambling operations in San Francisco. With the help of businessman William Newsom II, Pat Brown became governor of California for 2 terms. During his governorship, he awarded the Squaw Valley concession contract to William Newsom III and his partner, John Pelosi. The deal was criticized for the state of California paying for everything and getting nothing. William Newsom III grew up with the governor's son, Jerry, who was training to be a Jesuit priest. John Pelosi's son, Paul, married Nancy D'Alessandro, daughter of Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., who was known for smuggling heroin into the U.S. with Lucky Luciano and the Baltimore Mafia. John Pelosi's son, Ron, married William Newsom's daughter, Barbara. Over ongoing disputes about the Squaw Valley concession, William Newsom Sr. threatened to hurt the governor politically, just as Governor Brown was running for a 3rd term against Ronald Reagan. He lost. But 8 years later, the former governor's Jesuit son, Jerry, reclaimed the governorship in 1974. He appointed William Newsom III to a Placer County judgeship in 1975, and 3 years later to the State Court of Appeal. William Newsom was an attorney for oil magnate J. Paul Getty, named in the 1966 Guinness Book of World Records as the world's richest private citizen. And while serving on the appellate bench in the 1980s, he helped Getty's son, Gordon, secure a change in state trust law that allowed him to claim his share of a multi-heir trust. After Newsom retired from the bench, he became administrator of the Getty Trust and provided seed money for his son Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi's nephew, to start the Plump Jack business that led to a career in San Francisco politics as mayor of San Francisco and lieutenant governor of the state of California. Gavin Newsom was informally adopted by the Gettys after his parents divorced, and recently succeeded family friend Jerry Brown to be the current governor of California. For 80 years, these 4 families have ruled over the state of California politically. And with the help of Kamala Harris, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, and Dianne Feinstein, California's uncontrollable state government spending has amounted to over $2 trillion in debt and the highest tax rates in the country. The homelessness population is on the rise so much that a typhus outbreak has reached epidemic levels. Thousands of needles from illicit drugs litter the streets. They have made California a sanctuary state. They have been steadily chiseling away at the Second Amendment. They have passed laws for mandatory vaccinations. On October 1st, 2016, right before Donald Trump won the election, President Obama transferred full control of the internet from the U.S. government to an independent California nonprofit organization. In a cyber war scenario, the U.S. government may not have control over the internet. Even if it secures military and government domains and IP addresses, the targets in cyber warfare are likely to be civilian, and the U.S. government requires private sector infrastructure to operate. Since the internet underpins our computer systems, electrical grids, communication systems, and other critical infrastructure, our entire civilian society could be at risk.
Today, the Republican majority is not judging the president with fairness, but impeaching him with a vengeance. In the investigation of the president, fundamental principles which Americans hold dear, privacy, fairness, checks and balances, have been seriously violated. And why? Because we are here today because the Republicans in the House are paralyzed with hatred. Until the Republicans free themselves of this hatred, our country will suffer.
I now yield to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Pelosi, the sponsor, to explain the resolution.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I would, Mr. Speaker, like to take a moment to thank Chairman Fasell and Mr. Broomfield, Mr. Yatron and Mr. Bereiter, the chair and ranking member of the subcommittee, and the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee for their assistance in expediting consideration of this legislation. The Earth Summit Environmental Leadership Act, as this is known, presents us with an opportunity to follow up on the important work of the Earth Summit to develop its blueprint, Agenda 21, for global environmental action. HCON Res 353 outlines a comprehensive national strategy for sustainable development in accordance with the principles of Agenda 21 to be coordinated under the leadership of a specific office and at the direction of a high-level government official. The resolution also urges the United States to identify and initiate further agreements to protect the global environment and to support the creation of a high-level United Nations Sustainable Development Commission headed by an Undersecretary General. Third and lastly, the President is urged to report to Congress on the progress made on with this action. HCON Res 353 is supported by the administration. I have been in contact with the appropriate offices of the State Department and have incorporated their suggestions into the resolution. The 71 co-sponsors of this measure include one-half the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee and all of the House delegates to the Earth Summit. It is also supported by the major United States non-governmental organizations concerned with the environmental issues. The Earth Summit presented world leaders with an opportunity that should not be lost. We must now embark on a new course that will sustain our planet and its resources for the benefit of future generations. This resolution calls on the United States to assert its leadership to achieve this goal. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. Thanks again to the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee for their recognition of the importance and timeliness of this resolution. We must make the promise of Rio a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you see who's controlling the narrative? It's been going on for a very, very long time. They plan in long decades and centuries of time. They have the power. It's not going to be by your voting or writing your congressman because they're all on the same team. They're all just playing roles that you all talk about when you talk about politics. You talk about this president or that president or what you like or don't like because you don't want to take the power back of yourself. You don't want to say, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to grow my own food. I'm going to get my own water supplies. I'm going to build my community where I live. They have a plan, folks, and the plan is to burn us all out. Look at this map. Look at this map of the wildfire potential outlook for December. This is a map of the United States, and what's missing about the fire outlook? Every other state but California. The only state that's targeted for fire potential outlook is California. Nowhere else. They're starting with the liberals. Once they break the back of the liberals, then they go after the conservatives. But this is their agenda. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, biodiversity zones, because they need to protect the ecology. They need to protect the environment is what their stated purpose is, right? While they burn us out, they kill all the animals, and they move people out of their homes and attack the elderly and whatnot. Look at this map, folks. Do you want any more evidence? Look at what's happening. I can't make it any clearer to you. And if you stay silent during these times, it's on you. I'm sorry. But if you don't speak out now, you just want your life to be like it was, I'm sorry, it's not going to be that way, but it's going to be worse for our children. It's going to be worse for the plants, for the animals, and for everyone else if we don't step up now while we have the opportunity. They're closing in the walls. This is their agenda. Look at where the rail lines are supposed to go in California. Look at where the mega dams are supposed to go in California. In the exact same profiles where they're burning us out and telling us to get out. Get out, get out. Meanwhile, the puppeteers, the shills, the ones that are all in on it are making bank. They're making huge bank. Who's getting the contracts? The ones in power. Not you and not me. And then they play the games like Newsom's on our side, cutting back the high-speed rail plans. Bulgaria has a better railway system than those of us in the United States. And then we have the high-speed rail funds might get allocated elsewhere. They just announced later, right hand, left hand. Here in Northern California, they got the SMART train, and they're building the SMART train going all the way up in the beginning stages using industrial gauge rail lines while transporting 40 passengers at a time, costing millions and billions and overrunning cost. Let's remember what SMART stands for, folks. Surveillance, military arsenal, and residential technology. Let's recall what Agenda 21 really is from their document. Quote, effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of all human society unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action to be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level. Again, can it be any more clear? They tell you what they're going to do. They just spread it out over such long time zones, everybody forgets about what they said they're going to do. Well, they started with the measly measles in Disneyland, and they started requiring mandatory vaccinations on children. And nobody said anything. Nobody went crazy. Nobody said, no, you can't do this in this country. But it's going to get worse. What's going to be next? Euthanizing children? Euthanizing adults? Are you going to get your biochip? Are you going to be putting Alexa and Next, whatever it's called, monitoring devices that Amazon's going to require for home insurance? Let's get back to the Agenda 21, what they're saying they're going to do. On September 25th to 27th, 2015, in the United Nations headquarters, thousands of delegates, UN diplomats, representatives of non-governmental organizations, heads of state, and the Pope will converge to present a new 15-year plan entitled, quote, Transform Our World, the 2030 Agenda for, quote, Sustainable Development. Just as in 1992, they're openly telling us what their plans include and how they intend to put it in force. Now, this is critical to understand. The preamble says, quote, all countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborative partnership will implement this plan. We are determined to make the bold and transformable steps which are urgently needed to shift the world into a sustainable and resilient path. As we embark on this collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. Remember the No Child Left Behind and all that? They're putting it right in our face, and it goes on. We were told that without hesitation, Agenda 21 was aimed at destroying free enterprise, that it was a clarion call for humans to live on less, and that Earth could no longer sustain the consumptive appetite of the United States of America Corporation. They told us, but so many weren't listening. It took 15 years to finally understand Agenda 21. By then, it was firmly entrenched in every government, agency, community plan, and every school curriculum, so much so that it's now impossible to combat. It's a done deal. No matter if the science of global warming is all phony, climate change provides the greater opportunity to bring about justice and equality in the world, said Kristen Stewart, former Canadian Prime Minister of the Environment. And here is another quote. We got to ride this global warming issue. Even if the theory of global warming is wrong, we will be doing the right thing in terms of economic and environmental policy. Timothy Worth, president of the United Nations Foundation. They state what they're going to do. And here you see more issues as they compound. Sudden oak death syndrome has been around for over a decade, which they're using to blame on the trees dying off. And all the trees dying off is causing the forest to have multiple fuel for the fires, so they're saying. So that gives them credence to log and promote the taking out of the dead trees because they're going to cause wildfires. You see how this works? They're clearing the lands. But we know it's all being caused by geoengineering. We know spraying the particulate matters, the aluminum oxides, and all of the toxic chemicals that are coming in the skies now out here daily, and we're seeing around the world, is fueling the fires, not the sudden oak death syndrome. That's the excuse they used. And here we see Trump. What is he doing? Oh, he's helping the Amazon because they're losing their forest to fires too. The lungs of Chomolungma, the lungs of Mother Earth. And then they're going to say, oh, the vegetation is above normal, and so it causes more fuel for the fire. And in the droughts, it's so dry, there's more fuel for the fire. There is no winning. They got both sides covered. It's neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, on steroids, folks. Meanwhile, they're spraying us. They're spraying our children. They're spraying nature. It's all evil. It's all evil. We must bring open hearts. And here they have the gal in the leopard suit, the meteorologist. What's a meteor? What's an ologist? Study of meters? But here it's not funny what's happening. It's happening daily now. Out here in California, it's the fall season or the end of the fall season, and the trees have turned, the leaves are brown and they're not dropping. It's really, really weird what's happening. I'm gonna get on that in the next video. But it's really strange what's happening to the environment. If you look around, you see dead trees everywhere. And that's part of their game, part of their plan. Extermination. Get them out. Burn them out. Fear them out. And then they have these other issues that are going on with these fires, with these rashes are going on when the fires were occurring. This was last year in California. And then they crank up the propaganda machine. They bring in the little girl, just like they've done throughout history, folks. They're using the same plot because it's worked over and over with Stalin, with Chairman Mao, with all of these guys. And now they're bringing Greta in, Greta. Meanwhile, they're using the climate action plan to say the scientists are saying, but not one of them addresses geoengineering. And again, no one's moving back in. And the two Jesuits, the Trump and the Newsom, are playing both sides of the fence. We're going to cut off funding. It's the liberals versus the conservatives. And meanwhile, Trump is saying that we're going to take over your lands and we're going to take over 1 million acres and we're going to start fracking and drilling, despite the outcry of the people. Meanwhile, California is the highest taxed state in the country by a factor of huge. All designed to increase costs in California so it becomes unlivable. That's the plan. And so they're just ratcheting it up. Look at gas prices in California. Why are gas prices significantly higher than any other place in the continental United States corporation? Why? Well, you better have your gas when the power goes out to run your generators. Oops, they're passing a law that says you must have permits now to run your generators. The state of Orwell is all over. And then what are they doing? They're increasing parking restrictions at the homeless that are going to the shelters to try and get some food. They're making it untenable. They're making it so they can take the homeless and collect them and put them in vans, FEMA vans, to get organ harvesting. It's not just happening in California, folks. This is going to happen and is happening across the world, the country, and the world going on as the homeless are struggling. And it's not just the youth. It's not just the millennials. It is the baby doomers. The baby doomers haven't been saving anything. Most of them, a lot of people are in massive debt. Now they're getting kicked out of their homes and they have very little savings because interest rates are at below 1%. You can't make any money unless you're in the stock market by design. And then they're going after and targeting the elderly during these fires. They're not giving them power, and nobody's coming to help them. Listen to this horrible story that's still going on today.
But first, California wildfires have left a trail of death and damage over the past few years. One more casualty, it turns out, has been the senior citizens whose houses in a mobile home park survived but remain uninhabitable. Our story comes from two students from the University of California, Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism, Carla Caraballo Torres and Lauren Elaney Gill, who narrates this report.
At the north edge of Santa Rosa city limits, you'll find a barren lot marked by charred stumps and an empty pool. It's what is left of Journey's End Mobile Home Park, still desolate after the Tubbs fire struck in 2017. Still standing are 44 houses that survived, but they are empty. No one is allowed to live there. The fire devoured more than 100 homes, but oddly enough, the folks whose houses remain say they wish they had burned too. 84-year-old Teresa Udall's home was unscathed by flames, but like her neighbors, she can't move back.
I put all my savings into that house and paid for it outright. So it kind of ticks me off that, it's being held in hostage.
The fire destroyed the electric, gas, and water systems that supported the homes. Former residents with homes still standing aren't allowed to live there, but they've also had trouble getting private and federal insurance funding. Richard Weinert is Deputy Director of Codes and Standards at the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
This is a report from November when we did the inspection of the 44 units that were left there.
He says private owners are in control of the land beneath the houses, not residents like Teresa. With no utilities, the state declared it uninhabitable while the property owners weighed their options. Weinert was on the team that placed red tags on surviving houses. The move was intended to open doors to federal funding for the fire survivors, but it was unsuccessful.
We came from an idea that if we could post a non-occupancy type of notice on each one of those 44 units, then FEMA would come in with some more money for them to reimburse them for the homes. But from what I understand, unless the home was actually destroyed by the fire, that FEMA couldn't provide such funding.
This is my humble abode.
Lawyer Kendall Jarvis represents multiple Journey's End residents.
It's sort of an odd situation that there isn't a lot of precedent for. It's not something that most institutions are prepared to deal with.
In an email, FEMA explained that the agency dispersed a total of $1 million to former Journey's End residents, most of whom lost their entire house. Those whose houses survived received very little funding compared to those whose homes burned down. With the houses blocked off and minimal federal funding, it seemed like things couldn't get worse for the homeowners, but it did.
I often tell people, you suffered the loss and you thought to yourself, that was horrible. Thank God we're alive. Now, let's move forward. And then you met your insurance adjuster.
Yvonne Rawhauser is among those still negotiating with her insurance for a full payout.
Seeing the fires reached about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the interior wiring of my home has been invalidated. When I found out my house was still standing, I was elated because I thought, I can just come home.
According to Legal Aid of Sonoma, various insurance companies have covered minor damages, but not relocation costs. Foremost Insurance, which handles Rawhauser's case and others at Journey's End, told us by email that while it sympathizes with residents in this situation, it has paid all claims and benefits due to them under the terms of their policies.
They've had a very hard time getting access to their insurance policies because their insurance companies are claiming that they do not cover the loss because it is excluded due to the fact that it resulted from a government action, quote unquote, not from the fire.
Transporting the houses to another site is expensive, and other housing options are limited. Rents have skyrocketed, leaving seniors on Social Security and pensions with few places to go. Steve Morrow is one of them. The Vietnam veteran is renting a different trailer elsewhere while he continues to foot the bill on his Journey's End house.
I'm retired. I want my own place. I want to live my days out with my dog. There's other people who are in the same position. They don't have the money to rent somewhere.
Co-owner of the property, Ramsey Shuedo, declined to go on camera, but told us over the phone his family is partnering with a nonprofit housing developer to build a residential complex with apartments designated for the displaced seniors. It could be years before the project breaks ground. Journey's End residents say they cannot afford any more time to wait.
Until there's either access to their insurance policies to provide them the finances to move forward and or access to a relocation benefit, and theoretically both, these people are basically just in limbo.
More recent fires in Northern California displaced an estimated 50,000 people, many of whom are elderly. Several mobile home parks, representing about 4,000 houses, were lost. Journey's End is a glimpse of the agonizingly slow path to recovery for many wildfire survivors. For PBS NewsHour, I'm Lauren Eleni Gill in Santa Rosa, California.
And this is only the first inning, folks. We've got the crazies like Jeff Bezos here saying that space travel is essential because we're ruining the planet. Yeah, really. They're all on the same team, folks. They're playing from the same playbook. They're allowed to get the incredible wealth they get because they follow the script. They follow what the Jesuits, the Satanic 13 bloodlines, the Vatican tell them to do as part of their big agenda. They have a book called the Book of Continuity they follow over generations and generations. It's not the Rothschilds. We have to take the conversation up. But we see that the faces that we do see, who are they? Who are they associated with? Well, Jeff Bezos, he's contracting with the CIA, providing them all the information they need. Not like they need any more information on us. And how about the former Google executive, Schmidt? What does he do? He jumps on from Google and jumps in with the Pentagon Innovation Board. These are paid with our tax dollars. And then you got the shills like Mike Adams at Natural News, the controlled opposition, who's saying, oh, we got to take down the corporations, the evil, evil corporations. You got to see both sides of what's going on. They have all the wealth and they're taking it from us. They want to squeeze us, they want to cause hurt, and they want to cause pain. So Amazon, what are they doing when everybody's canceling insurance? They're getting into the insurance business. You're going to have all the home security, invasive devices, monitoring devices to qualify. And what else? Apple, Amazon, and Google are making big healthcare moves now with Fitbit, which is a dangerous thing to have on your wrist, and other devices. And Amazon is going to be your big pharma drug dealer. They spent $1 billion for online prescription company to deliver to your homes. Why? Because no one's going to be leaving. You're going to be stuck in your homes. Those that aren't in work camps. And then now Apple's coming out just the other day and said they're going to spend $2.5 billion to help the housing crunch. And then they're also building a homeless shelter in Seattle as well. Why are they doing this? For control, for absolute control of the population, because the people can't feed themselves and they have no shelter, so they have to go. But what is Amazon? You can tell what they're doing. You can tell what they got in store for these people. They don't even treat their employees well. They have to get on food stamps just to live so they can deliver our packages from China and from Indonesia and from Vietnam. Meanwhile, they're spying on us. The Foxconn plant being put in, Indonesia and China have 1.3 million employees in Foxconn, which makes all our most of them smart devices and computers. It's so bad over there. The working conditions are so bad over there that they have to put up suicide nets. So people won't commit suicide because they hate their lives and all they do is work 7 days a week for less than minimum wage. And what are they doing here in California? As Trump announced that we're going to become the manufacturing capital of the world, make America great, we're going to be the factory workers. We're going to be the slaves for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the BRIC countries. Those are the new debt consumers. But first they have to break the back of the people in the United States. First they have to break California and the liberals, because once they break the liberals, then they can go after the conservatives. But California and New York are the two test cases to see how fast they can do that. Meanwhile, Walmart and Sam Walton, who designed the Japanese internment camps, who worked for U.S. intelligence, is going to be converting the retail stores that are closing like crazy everywhere into what? Pre-education centers, That's the plan. And the weather's getting more crazy. It's not just here. Here we're seeing the Arctic blast hitting 170 records expected to fall. How do they know it's going to? Because they create the weather. They do it. And it's not just here in the United States. It's around the world. Australia's on fire again. They're getting hit as bad as it is in California. They're getting hit just as bad. There is nowhere that it is safe to go. There's nowhere that's not going to be under attack. Meanwhile, we're getting thrown in our face that the Paradise Fires 1 year later is Resilience Day. Are you kidding me? And then PG&E is sparing the headquarters of the big Fortune 500 companies. This is the PG&E headquarters in San Francisco. And I want you to look like in the entrance what's on their roof. I covered this in the other video. It's Baphomet inside a triangle, inside a seeing eye. The symbolism is everywhere for those with eyes to see and ears to hear the truth, even though it's an inconvenient, uncomfortable, and horrible truth. Meanwhile, PG&E's establishing base camps. They're not going anywhere. They're saying the blackouts are going to continue. Meanwhile, they give all their employees luxury living who have to take all the abuse from people blaming the low-hanging fruit. But they have beautiful dining halls. They have ping pong tables. They have it all set up to provide the greatest service. Meanwhile, the homeless are out in the streets growing by the day. Growing everywhere. And then they have the San Jose State Google scholar, Craig Clements. He's there at the Paradise Fire the morning it happens with his LiDAR radar to fire laser into the fires. Meanwhile, LiDAR radars are monitoring all that we're doing. And this is all part of their agenda under the Urban Interface Assessment Plan. They say, well, we got an urban interface. They're talking about where the forest meets the suburbs. And look at the map. This is their plans. They're going to get everybody out of these areas they have marked. It's part of their plans. And while evil men plot, good men must plan. We've got to get our own plan back to the gardens. While they're planning on moving us out from the rurals and into the stack and pack 'em cities, while they're putting out such things as controlled burn sodas so that they put it right in our face. Look at the eye of Horus there. Meanwhile, the toxicity continues. They can't move back into their areas like they want to. They are shutting down our ways to communicate with each other through means not controlled by the government or the corporate internet connections. They are taking away our lifestyles and our right to enjoy peace, tranquility, and the right to be left alone. They're telling us that it's the winds, where the profiles are going to shut off power in certain areas, but all of a sudden the winds don't hit over here. All of a sudden the winds don't hit the other states and have to shut off power there. Yet the pictures prove otherwise. The house is on fire. There's no winds, and the shrub and the flora is left alone. And this is one strain called PG&E, one little puff, and it's lights out, bitches. They got everybody now talking about the wind, not about the fire, while they spray this chem fog. This is over the Santa Rosa to make everybody think it was a fire so they could shut off their power. Oh, the fire's coming. We're going to shut off your power. And everybody goes, okay, because they don't know any better. But we do. We're waking up. We need to share. We need to speak with all. You cannot be silent anymore. We have massive evidence that we're under attack. This is the silent weapons for quiet wars. This is the report from Iron Mountain. This is the end of the quotes from that they've been telling us for a very long time. They've had this technology now, we're learning about the Tartarians, that they were likely doing this back in the 1900s when they destroyed the Tartarian Empire. And their motto is, just do it. Just do it. And then they mock us, folks. You should be incensed. You should be upset when they put on the soda cans, the Dew cans. It's a code red alert. Or they put on the can of Mountain Dew. Oh, it's live wire. Or they tell you what they're going to be doing on the soda cans called pitch black. All part of the much bigger agenda to shut down, make all power in California on the ground unreliable so they can put it up in space or high altitude platforms, if you will. They'll beam down the energy. As I said before, Elon Musk has put up tens of thousands of, quote, satellites to beam down 5G. He said that's what's going to happen. And they're going to do your cars, battery cars. And they're going to do the homes. That's why they're requiring all homes to have solars on their roof. So they'll beam it down and you will not be able to stop them. Once they have all the power up in space and you have no power, it's checkmate humanity. And who is going to stop them? This is the company Solarian. They're down in Manhattan Beach. Look it up. And don't listen, and just understand how the language, the NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Training Programming language works, how the PSYOPs works on people. They spend billions and billions and billions of dollars every year on what's called brain mapping, the Brain Mapping Initiative. This is to control the narrative, to get you into groupthink, to get you thinking and acting a certain way, to get you never to rebel, to never step out of your comfort zone and saying, this is not going to happen on my watch. It's stopping here. The Mexicans have a term called ya basta. It stops right here. We have to understand what they're doing. We have to understand the nuts and the bolts of what is their agenda and what is their plan. And that has been my work since I've started. That has been the work of this 6-part series to date, is to bring you all up to speed about what the plan is, what the agenda is. And once we know their agenda and plan, then we can begin to plan ours. But first we have to find our tribe. First we have to come together and bring awareness to this. So in the crisis is also opportunity. This is the time, is the greatest time in thousands of years of history to come up and rise. Find your tribe. This is what actually we need to do, is find our community, our water, our food, and our precious energy. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all your support, and love one another always. It's going to get worse from here at another time. But again, the only answer is going to be our communities. We have to get off the internet. We have to get back to taking care of nature and taking care of our children and making them the focus by growing our own food and developing our own ways of life, a much simpler way of life, like our ancestors did when they learned where sources of things came from. We become a push-button world, and we have to find love in our hearts. We have to have eyes to see the beauty in the tragedies, in that through the suffering it brings us together. The soul that sees the beauty may sometimes walk alone. This is the journey of the wounded healer, the Chiron. When we find that the love of power, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will know peace. We don't want retribution or revenge. We want to change the culture that has created this 5,000 years of war, hatred, and genocide. And let me close out this 6-part series with a little astrology, because it is predictive, there is a plan, and we do repeat cycles after cycles after cycles. Their vision is 2020, the right to sight, but the astrology, the luminaries, are telling us that things are going to get intense beginning in January. Pluto is destruction. It blows things up so new things can be created. Saturn is hard lessons learned. And look at in the first house. Look at that train going on. The first house of self-identity, the warrior, the Mars, who we are as individuals and who we are as species. Also on summer solstice and winter solstice conjuncting Jupiter and Saturn. This hasn't happened in thousands of years. What this means, Jupiter's expansion, Saturn's contraction. Jupiter's learning and easy learning, Saturn's hard learning, hard lessons, father, death, Cronus, and time. What they're telling us is there's going to be an opening for ascension. There's going to be an opening for us to expand our consciousness. It is not going to be easy. The lessons we learn as we grow up are harder and become bigger adults. And we are entering the age of Aquarius as predicted, the water bearer. That's the human. It's of the mind, but it's Saturnian. It's going to be tough, but it's the return of the feminine divine. It's the return of all things that we wish for and hope for our children and the future world. But first we have to fight for our rights. We have to declare and to follow through with action our intention to create the much better world we have to see. We know we're going down if we do not step up now. It is a time of the great warriors and warrior, and the men have to start supporting the women, the mother bear, who is going to take the lead now. Peace, love, and be the change, folks. The time is now.